Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to start the basic training overview for economic restructuring, a webinar. We have guests from the Carbondale Main Street program in our audience with us tonight to kind of give you a little bit of overview as to how the process will work tonight. We will be answering questions and going over questions all at the same time, both with the people on hand here with us tonight, as well as people joining us online. The questions will be approximately at the end of my section, so approximately every 15 to 30 minutes we will be having questions. And of course, there will be, at the end of both sessions, there will be a question and answer at the end of the section. This first section on economic restructuring will end approximately at 7 p.m. tonight. With the final questions being asked at that time. We'll take about a 5-minute break, and then we will return to do the promotions training for the basic training overview at that time. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. Economic restructuring is one of the components of the Illinois Main Street program that is perhaps the most underutilized in all the 4 points approach. It seems to be the unsexy part of Main Street is what I hear quite a bit, the boring part of it. Myself, being from a business background, I always think it's the most sexiest of all the 4 points, but again, I guess that's my personal opinion. So I'm going to give you some ideas tonight as we move forward on how to engage the economic restructuring point more in your Main Street program. One thing that you need to know and you need to embrace, if you have not already done so, is rarely will the downtown ever be the primary provider of goods and services for communities any longer. With the move in the 1970s and 80s with the big box stores and malls and what have you to the outskirts of town, it did impact the downtown area very negatively from this point of view. So it's very important that you understand from an economic restructuring standpoint, especially if you have committee members that remember, we'll call it the good old days, those days will not return in the ways that they were previously. But there's definitely ways of engaging commerce differently than you have looked at it in the past. Main Street's ER focus is market-driven. The consumers want something unique. That's why they come to Main Street. They want a unique experience. Changing consumer behaviors is not that difficult to do, especially if you give them what they're looking for from the unique perspective. There's available space for growth and future development. Typically, downtown space is the most equitable for the investor to invest in because available space is usually given at a much fairer dollar amount than it would be when going to a mall or to an outside area of the community. And of course, when you're looking at the unique, in almost all cases, the downtown area is very historic. It offers an ambiance. It offers differentiation, very unique, and of course, it gives a sense of community where otherwise a mall, per se, would not. Downtown's capacity and potential. The downtown business community and its uses. The retail and restaurant is by far the most popular use of the downtown area across the nation. That may or may not be your focus for your Main Street community, but if we were to take a slice of Main Street communities across the nation, a large percentage of them would focus on this particular industry. There's local and specialty products. Coffee, I just throw that as an example of something that is brought into virtually all downtown Main Street areas. Entertainment. There's always a move in Main Streets to stay open as long as you possibly can. In other words, don't roll up the sidewalks until the last dollar has been spent. And a lot of times the community, the Main Street will look at initiating some sort of a nightlife or cultural diversification so that you can bring people throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the weekend, to where you virtually never close down except to clean up the mess and start all over again. Another aspect of downtown that is often underlooked at is the residential aspect, and it is one of the key factors to a proper downtown build-out, because where you have people residing are people that will spend dollars if they only have to walk down the street. And it's very beneficial to a Main Street district to develop a plan that concentrates on residential build-out. A lot of times that's second story and second floor build-out. And of course you need a blend of service. In my experience working with Main Street communities across the nation, I have to say that one of the failures of the non-successful Main Street communities is focusing and allowing too much service in their downtown. Service is great for bringing people to the downtown, an attorney, an insurance agency, a real estate office. It's great for creating some traffic and people, coming and parking and visiting those particular offices, but it doesn't do a lot to build out the tax base and does not do a lot to build out for the Main Street as a whole. But you do need a blend of that. It's just that to make sure that in your planning efforts that you do not concentrate too much on the service. And of course, a good benefit of government and institutional. There's nothing better than having a driver's license facility or a post office in your downtown. It's a great traffic generator. And it doesn't cost your community virtually anything other than space to provide those particular services. The government picks up the tab on everything, but they are crucial services and mandatory services that people will frequent, if not daily, very often throughout the month. So it becomes a great traffic generator for you. But again, not to focus too heavy on those services, but allowing the blend. And we'll talk about that later in the presentation as we move forward. The market analysis process. I'm kicking right into this aspect of it so that you understand that to understand the blend of what you need from the downtown, you need to perform a market analysis. A market analysis, I don't want this to scare you. This is something that you can pay for and go out to third-party consulting firms to help and conduct a market analysis. However, there are also studies that you can conduct yourself through your Main Street program, or at least substantially you can do. You may still have to go to third parties to help with some details and to help with certain research, but it can be done if you've got the volunteer base, especially if you have a professional base representing on your board and or committees that can help with various aspects. And we'll go through the various aspects of the market analysis, but it will give you an idea of what your opportunities are for downtown. One, you need to understand what the market conditions are existing right now and what the potential is. What are the opportunities by sector, and that's by industry sector? What are the opportunities that you need to grow with out there? Then you need to draw conclusions from the market analysis. Even when third-party market analysis are conducted, they're very factual and identify, they're very heavy on the first two bullet points that I just went over, but it's up to you to, as a committee or as a board and as an organization, to determine what is the outcome of this market analysis, what are the conclusions, and where should we move forward with that data and information. Then, of course, develop recommendations. Those recommendations are, of course, internally for use, you as a board in moving forward, but there are also recommendations to potential developers, existing business owners, the city government, Chamber of Commerce, all of your strategic partners that you have in your downtown. These are recommendations for them as to what role they can play in moving forward. And of course, applying what you learn as you go along. Understanding market conditions, there's a lot of aspects of this. With tonight's presentation, again, we're just doing an overview of basic training, and you'll hear this from time to time, but as we offer committee trainings throughout the state over the next few months, I encourage you to attend those, because we'll be talking about some more detail of what the various committees can tackle and under economic restructuring we'll go into a little bit more detail. But I want to leave you tonight with one of the key aspects of understanding market conditions is to conduct a thorough building and business inventory. If you have not done that, you need to do one this year. Make it a part of your 2012 plan. If you have done one recently, good. If you have not updated it in 2 years, it's time to look at it again. I recommend that you keep it updated as it goes along, as you are aware of changes, to make the changes to the building inventory, but you aren't always aware of who current owners are. You may not even, especially when it comes to service-based businesses, you may not be very much aware of what is actually in the inventory. So you need to do a thorough building inventory at a minimum every 3 years. Okay? Next is to survey the business owners. I've just got a sample up here for you to look at. Excuse me. But it's very important that from a retention and expansion opportunity for businesses that you survey your existing business owners. That is very key in understanding what their current thoughts are at the time. Analyze the existing business mix. What is the leakage and surplus? These can come from GIS type components. You can also do it through the survey process, but exactly what is the leakage? What surplus do you have? When you're looking at retail leakage, what specifically are people traveling outside of your district to purchase, and how much are they purchasing? With this particular sample right here, you can see there in this particular community, there must not be any electronics or appliance stores servicing this downtown district. 100% leakage is going outside the district. Can you draw the conclusion that you need to put an electronics or appliance store? Well, yes and no. Yes, there is obviously people buying electronics and appliances, but can you warrant one in your downtown environment? That comes from the balance of your market analysis to help understand that. Surveys are key to getting a handle on this opportunity, especially consumer surveys. Again, surveying consumers, you want to know when and where and why they shop. How often do they eat out? During which of the following extended hours are most likely to shop for non-grocery store items? These are just samples from a survey question. I worked in a community recently that we included these surveys in all the water bills. They had the opportunity to complete them manually and return them with their water bill, and volunteers keyed it into the software, or there was a link that they could do it themselves and do it all online. It's a great way to get the consumer take on what is needed in their downtown. And never forget the importance of doing intercept surveys. Stake yourself out at key places in front of that post office that's in your downtown and do a quick 30-second or less intercept survey that gets the basics. What's on people's minds and what are they shopping for downtown and what would they like to see in their downtown area? We'll get to questions in just a second. Okay. Evaluating service opportunities. Again, it takes on a slightly different connotation than retail investment, but you are basically looking at the lifestyle of the potential consumer in your downtown district. You're looking at those attitudes towards what should be in the downtown service district. Are they traveling for their services outside the area? Is there something they'd like to see in the downtown area? And you're looking to give an idea on what is the potential for the service in your downtown. And of course, the residential opportunities. You're looking at existing residents. You want to see if they're owning, renting, where they're at. Is it in the second floor? Is it in townhouses? Is it in a house that services your district? You want to see what's available by way of vacant space, and you can turn this survey into a very good recommendation to your housing authority in your community and say, listen, we need to focus on this. One thing you do not want to do is you do not want to convert your downtown to Section 8 housing. If it is Section 8 housing, you need to think your mindset on that at some point. Section 8 housing That has been the bane of more downtowns struggling to grow than almost any other key element. So keep that in mind. All right. Well, I will take questions before we go into business retention. If we've got any from the audience, we'll take those, as well as anybody that's online. Just type in your question, and I will get back to and I will answer it to you in just a few minutes. Any questions from the audience? Okay.
Oh, we are thinking of doing a market analysis with a focus on point of sale. So basically, what zip codes frequent our downtown, how far we're getting additional traffic, basically tourism data, in addition to local data.
Okay.
Is that something typically done in the market analysis? We are doing one this year. We haven't done one in at least 9 years. So. Okay.
The question was, is Carbondale has said that they're getting ready to do basically a point of sale survey to find out the geographic region of their consumers and basically the consumer type, the demographic that's coming into their downtown. And the question is that typically a part of a market analysis, or what is that? Well, in very good, I'm going to put on my consulting hat right now, and I'm going to be very vague and say yes and no, okay? And I have seen it as a part of market analysis. Typically, though, it is a separate type of analysis, okay, to actually have a point-of-sale analysis out there. It's very good to have. You will find, though, that it doesn't help you with your retail growth as much as you might think it might, okay? Most retailers don't care as much about the demographic of who the consumer is as much as they are of the traffic count and how much dollars is actually being spent in your downtown. So, which is typically numbers that are used in your market analysis. Okay, so that tends to be from the entrepreneurial mindset. The thing that is most often used is dollars spent. Okay, are there any questions from any one of us joining us online? Okay, we are going to move on with business retention now. Business retention has caught on in the 90s, early 90s, as being the true opportunity for growth and sustainability in your downtown. The typical consumer, especially those when a city council person is running for re-election, a lot of times they say they're going to bring jobs and they're going to bring this and they're going to bring that to the downtown and create new business. Okay, it's very catchphrase to bring something new, to create something that wasn't there before. However, for true sustainability, any economic developer from anywhere will say that more dollars are impacted to stay in the community if you can keep your existing businesses happy and growing. Okay. So there's always, I've gotten this questions in the past in working with communities, well, how much time should we spend, how much effort should we spend in actually creating something new, and how much should we do in creating, retaining what we have? Well, my answer always is 100% on creating something new and 100% on retaining what you have, okay? And what that means is it's very important that your existing businesses know that you are helping them grow. It's very important that you're doing your effort in bringing business to their downtown. Of course, we're going to talk in the second half of our seminar this evening about promotion and all the way that we advertise and market and brand the downtown district to bring those consumers to the area. But from the ER point of view, it's very important that your existing businesses, you don't let them go. And with also having the mindset that even from an entrepreneurial point of view, it's normal for there to be turnover in businesses. Businesses come and go. The where that you are constantly looking is keeping the type of industry there, if it's beneficial to your business, if it's a part of your market analysis, to keep the industry and that type of business available your consumer and in your downtown, but it's also very important that you, when you do have a vacancy, to start the process of getting that vacancy filled, which we'll talk as a later portion here of our ER talk tonight. Okay, it's very important from your Main Street organization, and this is not just something that the director does. This is not the responsibility of only the director. This is the responsibility of the board and is the responsibility of the ER committee. It is your job collectively to know every single business that your district serves. You need to know what products they sell, what services they offer, and of course who the key owners and key managers are of each of those businesses, and to stay in touch with them on a regular basis. You always want to identify these 8 characteristics, and this should be always a part of your, what I call your ER inventory, your duties. You want to know who your key anchors are in your community, in your district. What's generating traffic? Well, we'll use the example again. It can be the post office. It can be that very creative, very unique retail outlet that's downtown. Whatever that might be, but you want to know who's creating traffic. Of course, you want to know who the long-standing businesses are in the community, who the creative model is, if there's any destination businesses. Okay? Do people drive? And this is something where your study, where you're taking in an idea of where the retail where zip codes are coming from for your area. You know, are people driving for this particular destination? Since we're hosting this in Carbondale tonight, Carbondale is very unique in that 25 years ago it was the key destination in southern Illinois. Then a little town called Marion just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and started stealing some of that consumer base away from them, even the local base. So over the years, where Carbondale was the destination, now they struggle to be the destination, especially in their downtown district, and looking for those areas where that might be. You always want to find those new businesses with strong growth potential. I have to say that from an entrepreneurial point of view, it's your go and out there. It's your real strong-willed, entrepreneurially-minded individual that typically has that strong growth potential. They're usually one and the same, and it's very easy to identify. Look for those ethnic businesses that might be serving local populations. I throw this in here because this is something that is growing ever, is the diversity of downtowns all across the nations in rural America. Different ethnic cultures are creating businesses and creating economic opportunities in the downtown. And we have several communities in the state of Illinois where this is the case. Carbondale is one of them that we're in tonight. And does your Main Street work well with that ethnic culture? And it may not have anything to do with, it's not that you don't like them, it's just that there may be a communication barrier. A lot of ethnic cultures don't really like to share or don't know how to share with other type cultures, especially the Anglo aspect. And it's very important that you bridge those gaps and look for ways of engaging them in your programming in the downtown business environment. And of course, any unique businesses with character and reputation. As an example of what I mean by that, 20 years ago when I was working with Main Street communities, the number one thing, and it is to this day, that nobody wants a tattoo parlor in their downtown. It's like, you know, what is that really bringing for us? They don't really, there's no tax base to be collected. It brings a kind of an unsavory environment. There's a perception of that. There's just a lot of different things. I recently worked in a community in Fairville, Minnesota, where one of the key destination businesses in that small community of 25,000 is the local tattoo artist. He's got a very creative, very trendy store. His windows are not darkened like a lot of tattoos. They're very light and very trendy. And he's one of the key volunteers for the Main Street program there. And people drive from and fly in from all across the nation because he is very talented at what he does. So it's just kind of the mindset. You want to look for constructive critique of overall merchandise. The Main Street ER committee, you should set up a subcommittee. This is a recommendation to you to actually go out and do creative critiques of people's storefronts and their merchandising efforts. You know, does it flow well? Are you able to find what you're looking for? Is it new and refreshing, or has it looked, you know, if you have a hardware store in your community, is it got the same dust on that bolt that it had there in 1960? Okay, that's something that's very key. Is there some ways that you can be creative, unique, and as a collective group, when you're a committee, it's very difficult for someone to point a finger and say, hey, you're just picking me out, and you're just picking on me. But you can be very creative, and it's a very fun thing to do. You basically get to shop and tell people how to run their business. So how fun is that, you know? Do consumer surveys, okay, as we talked about. Do business planning assistance. We'll talk about that in a little bit and how that can work. Another thing that you can offer from the ER point of view is website services. If you have volunteers that have this expertise, ways that you can be help people with their websites. Host useful and beneficial trainings from your ER committee. Business administration services. Advertising and promotion. Do the co-op, do the cluster focus. Could do focus of cluster groups for your advertising. There was a big thing that was put out by the National Trust through their the Main Street Center through their email blast a few weeks ago. I think it was right before Christmas. I got several calls from Main Street communities, both in Illinois and across the nation. You know, what are we doing here? That if you do offer co-op advertising for your Main Street program, and especially as if they're members of your Main Street group, that it could violate your 501c3 status. Okay. I don't want to act like an attorney for too long because I'm already boring you, and I don't want to bore you any further with putting that hat on. But basically, have your attorney on board with you, and there's all kinds of ways that you can get around that particular function by offering it to the community or to the Main Street district at large, whether or not they are members or not. It's not going to hurt you to offer that anyways. You get around that. I can almost assure you that your Main Street members would be the ones that would take the most advantage of it. So there's all kinds of ways going, but don't downplay the offering of co-op advertising to your Main Street. And of course, financial incentives, which we'll talk about in just a second. Okay. One thing that you can also do as your ER committee is you can teach how to attract more customers. There's all kinds of trainers out there. One thing that I like is take one of your key retailers that is very successful, and maybe somebody's been there for a few years or whatever. Have them come in and do a talk to your Main Street committee, to your other businesses. What's worked for them? How have they been able to retain customers? What's their customer service ethic? How to upsell. I would say that in working with businesses, especially in retail environments, a lot of times the owners kind of had this concept, the key managers have the concept of how to upsell, but they haven't translated that very well to their employees. One of the keys to increasing revenues in your downtown is always upselling. And you have to make sure that you have upselled everyone that has come into your retail establishment. And this can be very difficult if you've not had any proper training. So it's something that Main Street can offer. I start identifying consumer buying habits. What are consumers coming shopping in your downtown? Expand the new space in your downtown can be something the ER committee can look at, and then start diversifying the mix with other businesses. Look for companion shops. This is really a good thing to offer on a business survey, especially on a business retention survey. I love this question on there. What type of business would be a good compatriot with you to help your business grow? It might be a vendor that they're having to outsource to. It might be somebody that offers a similar type service but not the same. There's all kinds of synergies that you can look for there for other potential expansions. We've got in a community in Texas that I worked in, there is a really neat restaurant that really is very contemporary with a lot of local and regional there. And this directly came from a retail or a business survey that had been done a year prior, and the local custom picture framer / art gallery said that they would like to have this type of business so that people could see art in its natural environment and have coffee and have a meal and that type of thing. And an entrepreneur got a hold of this survey and says, hey, I'll put in that business. And they started working with local artists, and they've got a really neat store that's going on now. Okay? Be cognizant of business failure signs. This is something that when you're out visiting with local businesses, this is something that that you need to be cognizant of. So many times, Main Street directors and boards will kind of say, well, they've been around for years, and I don't know what's going on. They just shut up, they closed the doors and left. Well, rarely, especially a business that's been in your environment for longer than a year, there are signs that the business won't be around. Now, if they've only been there a year, they literally just might have been able to have a good show, and they just are so far behind on their payments, they just had to lock up the doors one day. But if they've made it past that first year, when 80% of small businesses fail, they're always in the first year. If they've made it over that threshold, then they might be able to, there's some signs. Look for low inventory. That's one of the key places. If they're a retail business and their inventory is not being replenished, that's a very good sign that they're struggling. Hours and staff reductions, limited advertising, store appearances are slumping. And typically in Main Street communities, you'll know if they're paying their bills or not, especially if they're not paying their taxes. That'll be in your paper or whatever. There'll be some issues. Negativity of owners. I don't take that one to heart. I know a lot of successful businesses with the owners negative every time you talk to them. They've been around for years. That comes with the territory sometimes. But definitely an owner that typically has a positive outlook on their business all of a sudden has a negative outlook. There might be more to it than just suffering from a bad day. Listen to those rumors. A lot of times they're founded. Most of the time they are. Just got to get to the facts of them. Maybe the business owners have fallen ill. Cannot tell you how many businesses have failed because the owner could no longer be on site because of a family or health issue. And one place that I think Main Street communities fail in retention is, especially a business that's been around for some time, is those business owners that are looking to retire. Do you typically want to lose that pharmacy downtown because the owners are retiring, or do you want to look at something to replace that with? And that is very key. It is up to you. It is your responsibility as a Main Street ER committee to sustain that and give some sort of succession plan, at least present a succession plan to the current owners as to what you're going to do if you're no longer going to be with this business any longer. Okay, before we jump into business planning, are there any questions? Take them from either online or from the audience. Okay, well, I must be giving a thorough presentation. Not any questions at this point. Okay, first off, let me give you my very quick background. I come from a small business development center and entrepreneurial background myself. I have no recollection of ever not selling something to somebody, even from a very young age. I love the thought of being able to come up with a business, developing a plan around that, and see if I can get money from you. That is what has been my goal my entire life, and I spent many years in the small business development center world helping others do planning. The Small Business Development Center, which in Illinois, you're very fortunate. There's over 40 SBDCs in the state of Illinois, and every single one of your communities in the state, you are serviced by a Small Business Development Center. However, they have limited staff and resources in some regards in a lot of SBDCs, and there's definitely ways that you as Main Street communities can help out the business planning process, which is a key element of sustained economic development and economic restructuring growth for your downtown community. Okay? These are the key elements, the 7 key elements of a business plan. The 3 that I have highlighted, market strategies, competitive analysis, and the design and development plan, are the 3 areas that a Main Street ER committee can definitely help with that development. I mentioned a while ago that 80% of small businesses that start up in this country fail in the first year. Of those 20% that make it after that first year, half of those will fail by years either 2 or 3. So if you do the math on this, of every business that starts in this country, whether it be in your downtown or whether it be in the mall, the statistics are the same. Only 10% of every business that starts up today will be around past year 3. That is an alarming statistic. It has virtually never changed, though. Why is that? Well, 90% of those fail because they didn't execute a business plan from the very beginning stages. Because it sounds too much like an English assignment, and maybe throw a little math in there and it just becomes boring. But how boring is it to suffer through bankruptcy court? How boring is it to suffer humiliation of a failure that you put your heart and soul into? How boring is it to lose your life savings? How boring is it to have a lien on your home for the rest of your life? Okay? A business plan is not a key to success. It is a tool for success. And if it's not done, your chances of failure, you more than likely will be in that 90%. You as Main Street organizations need to realize this, and you can be an assistant in that planning process. You don't want to write the business plan for a potential entrepreneur. Small business development centers don't write the business plan for the potential entrepreneur. They help them and guide them through the process, and they ask key questions. However, you are a repository for a lot of data and information through your Main Street organization that would help that budding entrepreneur or that developer with sources as to whether or not it would be key for them to get into. When you're looking at the market strategies, you identify how that company is positioned in the market. I want to open up a restaurant in your downtown, and it's going to be the best restaurant there ever was. My family and friends say so. My wife loves my cooking. Okay. What kind of restaurant is it going to be? It's going to be Mexican. Well, here in Carbondale, we have Tres Hombres, and yada, yada, yada. I cannot even go on. I know Tres from back in my college days, but there's other Mexican restaurants. Some have come, some have gone. There's probably one that's opened up recently, I would imagine. There always is. So do we need another Mexican restaurant here in Carbondale? Well, maybe, but we need to look on how you're going to position that and what kind of what you're going to service. But at face value, I'm not sure in the Main Street district that you need another Mexican restaurant. At face value, how are you going to position yourself? A Main Street, especially as the committee, I think can offer a really cool analysis of the menu and pricing structure. Don't lie to that potential restaurateur. Don't lie to that potential retailer. Say your pricing sucks or I love it, and be very open with it. You're not doing yourself, you're not doing anybody any favors by manipulating or not challenging yourself to be honest to that particular entrepreneur. You want to critique their promotion plan. How are they going to bring customers to the door? Well, I'm just going to take out one newspaper ad, and that's going to be all I'm going to do for the entire month, and then everybody will just come back after that. That's not going to work. We know that. Okay, and you can be very clear and very honest with them about that. Say, listen, you got a new business. You're going to have to create awareness. It takes 13 impressions nowadays for people to remember you. There's all these things that's going on. We're flooded with all the different media outlets now, a little thing called Facebook and a little thing called Twitter, and that huge thing called radio and TV and all these different things that are out there. How are you going to get found in your market? And be very honest with what their potential for sales can be. Look at their competitive analysis. Give them a thorough knowledge of the competition. It's your unbiased opinion. Say, listen, I'll take you around here to meet the competitors if you'd like to. This is what we know as a committee about those competitors. Here's the information for you. Assist with what the competitive strengths and weaknesses are. One question that we always ask when developing a business plan, tell me everything you know about the competitor and how you're going to do your business better. Ask that question of them. And just say, and they will give you what they think and then help them build upon that. Look for those niche opportunities. Pricing comparisons. Go around and look at the pricing. You know, are they going to compete with Walmart? Hope not. But if they are, you need to give them a pricing comparison. And of course, always be willing to do impartial surveys. Design and development plan. This may be something that, especially if you have a building inventory readily available. These are the locations that we think would be best for this particular type of business. We've identified this space would be good for your industry, whether it be retail build-out or whether it be service, or whether it be a restaurant, whatever it might be. These are the 5 locations that we think would be best suited for you. We do know from our building inventory that this is available for lease to own, or there is only a renting component to it. One of the keys that you can help, especially with retail and service to some extent, especially when you're talking about restaurants, is helping them locate key personnel. Okay, and that can be that is so crucial. Where are they going to find labor? If they don't have that labor source already sewed up with their business model, say, listen, we will help you. We will host resume collections for you. We will host job interviews for you. We'll host it here while you're building out your business. If you'd like to do that, you can have our conference room for that. But we will help you get those key employees. And then what are the administrative resources that can be offered and other professional resources that are out there? Okay. Are there any questions about how the how your Main Street community can assist with the business planning effort? Yes.
How would you best approach a business to help them, a new business, say, with a space, and would you go on the day they open? Sometimes I don't think we find out that they're coming into town until they're already here.
Okay. The question from the floor is, and I see that Fred has got his hand up. We'll get to you in just a second, Fred. Fred, if you would like, if you do go ahead and type your question in to the question box there, and I'll answer it here in just a second. The question from the floor was, when do you approach the new business in town, the Main Street? And it's always a problem. We didn't know there was even going to be a business here until there was a grand opening one day. Well, the answer to that is sooner the better. I would not have any lengthy conversation about their business model on grand opening day. I'm sure they're going to have their own set of headaches that they need to do. Definitely go to the grand opening. It's a great time to set up that meeting to where you can talk to them. Within their first 2 weeks to 30 days of being open, make sure that you had a lengthy conversation about their business model with them, okay? Now, they may be hesitant if they don't know you as to how much information they're going to deliver with you. What I would do is, in between the time that you have that formal meeting with them, go out to your committee, go out to your board. Does anybody know this business owner? If so, go with me, okay? That's a great way to just say, hey, we're here together, and can we talk openly about this, and these are the services that we can help you with, okay? What I would do, though, is I would, from the Main Street point of view, I would host business planning or business development workshops periodically throughout the year so that people, budding entrepreneurs and developers, know that you are going to be the one, that you're part of their go-to people that they should go to. Now, and even if you just host the Small Business Development Center to come in and do that talk, that's fine also. But you want to make sure that people in your businesses and budding entrepreneurs in your Main Street district understand that Main Street is an economic development arm and not just party planners. Okay, that happens a lot, so you need to start selling that a little bit along. Answer your question? Okay. All right. Any other questions from the floor? Okay. Got one from Fred here. Okay. Fred's question is, and he, first off, he had a question on how to ask a question, but it looks like he's found out how to do that, so congratulations, Fred. Second thing, his question is, can you say more about the form, the timing, the content of co-op ads that you have seen to be very successful? Fred, I hate to put you off on this, but it's something we're going to be talking about in the promotions section on the second half of our seminar tonight. But just very briefly, make sure that the timing and content of the ad is very much similar, that there's similarities of businesses on those are the most successful. I have seen ads that basically it was a shotgun approach. Anybody from the Main Street district that wanted to throw their logo in on the ad and wanted to get some sort of support did so. Those are the least effective. So if you want to have a taste of downtown, per se, you don't want to have the local mechanic shop on there as being part of the co-op advertising, because I don't care what it is, motorcycles just don't taste good. And the thing is, it's very important that you have consistency of the ads by having like industries, or at least businesses that can feed off of each other's client base. Okay. All right. I think that answered Fred's question. Or if there's any other questions, we'll move on. Fred, you still got your hand up. Did you mean to have that? If so, type in your question. Oh, he took it down. Okay. Wonderful. Technology's fun here as we go along.
The first time we've done a webinar with a live audience.
Okay.
Completely different.
There's a chatter in the room here that this is the first time that we've done a webinar with a live audience, and I think it's very much of a unique experience for the Illinois Main Street communities, and we're getting ready to do a couple more of these in the next 30 days, and seems to be working out well, I think, as we go along here. So your feedback on this at the end of tonight's session, of course there will be a survey later, can help us further tweak these as we need to go on. All right, now we're going to turn tables here just a little bit and look at some downtown real estate basics. This is a topic in several webinars by itself. It can be very lengthy and that's how you talk about it, but I am briefly going to touch on it here. Vacancies equal opportunities. In this particular picture here, this is one and the same building. The building in the upper corner, this is what it potentially could look like by way of a design rendering for that particular building that would consider to be very much of a sore spot for the Main Street district, I'm sure, if you had that in your downtown. But it is definitely look at what it could be. And you can look at how you can make these opportunities. So let's talk about how vacancies equal opportunity. One thing that a Main Street ER committee should look at when they're looking at their vacancies is they should promote the best uses and use your market analysis to back you up in that. But you should look at the best use of the market-driven alternatives for each of the vacancies that you might have. And be very honest. Say this would make a great retail outlet, and this is why. square footage, layout, open space design. There's all kinds of things that it can have, and it has a $750 a month rental fee on it, so it's very checkbook friendly. Create a storefront promotion of vacancies with the property owners. Put in highlights. They in each of the storefront, light them up. Main Street can raise money to keep the utilities on, the lighting. Have them lit up instead of having them dark. That is definitely much more of an inviting space to have. Go to your local printer and have them print out in large-scale format decals or stick-ons that look as though the business is alive and doing well. I've seen this in several communities. I actually bumped my head on a business that I was getting ready to go into. It was a vacant business, but I didn't realize that they had put decals all in the front. It looked like a very lively coffee shop. And I had to stand back about 2 feet after I about broke my nose going in the door and realized that this business was not alive. But it was open for opportunity, as the National Main Street is so often coined as saying. Give space for a youth business or a community-based entrepreneur. The business is vacant. It's not doing anything for you right now. Negotiate with the business owner to put some sort of a pop-up business in there. It may only be in there for 30, 60 days or until the business is rented, but gives it opportunity. How about those business owners that came in and said, I would like to just try this business, but I really don't want to get into a long-term lease. I want to see if it will go. Negotiate with the business owner and the building owner that space for short-term rent to just see if the business has any merit or not. Do temporary low-cost or no-cost meeting space for nonprofits or display space. And, of course, the temporary retail restaurant. And, again, they're coined as pop-ups. Leasing and downtown tenants. The leasing and rent function is, how everything works. This tends to be something that is definitely in your larger Main Street communities, your urban Main Street areas. However, it does have application to your more rural Main Street. You should, on your building inventory or as separate, have a map of what your ideal district would look like as to what should be the ideal leases, what should be the ideal rent for that particular area for those type of businesses. Look at those optimal combinations or clusters. Are there clusters in that Main Street district that is conducive to either bringing another business into that cluster, or is there opportunity to create a new cluster? That's something that's underlooked a lot of times. Plan for downtown uses, particularly ground floor and changes. This is something you usually typically have to work with the planning department with your city on. What is their planned use? Do they have a master plan? Do they have a comprehensive plan that encompasses your Main Street district, and does it take this into account? And, of course, understanding of what all the business location requirements are for a business to locate there, so that you know all the rules and regs, and that includes your TIF districts, your enterprise zone connotations, any other parameters that you might have, special service district of any kind, whatever that you might have, if there's any type of barriers and or incentives for that business development, you need to make sure that's part of your arsenal and you speak it fluently. Potential investors in your district will run their own numbers on the lease, buy or build, and of course they should, okay? However, you can be a catalyst for bringing this information to them so that they can have accurate math when they get ready to do it. What is a reasonable rent? Well, that's $1 million question. Or what I like to say, that's a percentage of $1 million question when you're looking at rent availability, okay? Every industry has its own magic number. And to some respects, various market areas have their own numbers. But there's some very good generalities that you can use out there. For instance, rent should never be for retail more than 10% of sales. Okay? Now, is that gross or net? Typically, That's gross. Okay? All right? Restaurant, as low as possible, I always say. If there's one thing that kills a restaurant, one is poor quality and consistency of food and menu. Second is non-customer service oriented employees. And third is too high a rent. Okay? And in this recent market trends that we've been having, that number 3 is bumping up to number 2 really quick. Okay, so it has to be a very equitable rent for restaurants. No more than 8%, closer to 5%, I will say that. Know what your asking rents are by square foot and speak it fluently. Don't go back to the office and look it up. Okay? It's very important that you be able to talk to an entrepreneur. It's leasing for $10 a square foot, $100 a square foot, $1,000 a square foot. Those are huge differences, but you need to be able to be very honest when you're talking on the street with this. Calculate sales by business type based upon your town. Have those industry standards. GIS numbers are great. If you got a GIS department through your planning department through your city, ask them to run the retail market analysis numbers for your community. Have them do that about every 6 months, a year, or whatever, and have those available. Post them online. It's a great place. But they're public numbers. Let people see what kind of money is being spent in their downtown. Is there enough income for the owner? Okay? And that has 2 connotations: the owner of the building that's renting, and the owner of the business that's making the rent. Know the relationship between rent, sales, and property owner investments in that space, and be able to speak it fluently on all of your available space, as well as the most recent buildings rented. Okay? Development issues and priorities. Make sure that you have in your inventory, as we've said before, and I keep going back to inventory, that you have all the vacant ground floor space correctly inventoried. That is your key and most entrepreneurial-friendly space that you will have. Look at that marginal ground floor businesses. In other words, are there businesses or are there existing spaces that you can convert to available space? Be very cognizant of it. It's what I call the upselling of the entrepreneur. You have a business inventory, you lay it out for them, say, you know, I'm looking at the town nearby, they've got this building ready to go, I don't think you have anything that's ready to go. You have to always upsell and say, listen, I am aware, I'm in conversation with an owner that he will do some build-outs for you, he will to convert some space for you. It's marginal right now as to whether or not it will fit your needs, but it is, let's make the phone call, let's go talk to them right now. Okay? Vacant upper floors. Do you have second-story build-out, or are they vacant? Are they ready to go for loft apartments? Are they willing to go for second-story residential? If they're not, are you in good graces and conversation with the building owners that you can get that conversion taking place? They're going to come back immediately and say, what are the incentives? Why do I want to do this on the come? Why am I waiting to do, what am I going to invest this for? Look for those community developers, approach your city, and come up with a comprehensive plan to where all parties can succeed at this. Parking lots, there's a big thing now, and that's been since the early 2000s. Green space conversion to parking lots conversion to green space, making parking lots more usable, making parking lots pay for themselves, it goes on and on and on. When you look at your physical map of your downtown, parking lots are oftentimes the very first thing that you can see from those aerial maps. They are a key component, and are they servicing your district correctly? Do you have meters? Are the meters being enforced? Would it be to your benefit to remove those meters or add more meters? It's very important that you take the parking consideration into play. And of course, pocket parks and vacant lots and all those, what they call tooth gaps. How are those all arranged, and where is their availability for more that you can make your downtown a walking environment. You're always looking for that walking environment to enhance that for your people. Okay, before we move to the next topic about how to foster business collaboration, are there any questions about the downtown rental lease component? We have a question from the floor?
In terms of, we have a lot of upper floor living in downtown, but we'd love to have more. We'd like to have multi-story, multi-use buildings be developed. How, you talked about incentives for upper floor build-out for property owners. Do you have some examples of that and how they've worked in communities trying to attract that?
Birmingham, Alabama, do some Google searches on that. That's a good one to look at. Memphis, Tennessee is another good one to look at. I understand those are a little bit larger communities, but they did it in smaller components and pockets. Columbus, Ohio is a great one because that made a faux pas here. I forgot to repeat the question from the audience. The audience asked if I could give some ideas of some areas and some ways of incentivizing and developing out the second story component for residential in the Main Street District. So I've been answering that very quickly there and forgot to repeat the question. There is, did you attend the conference in Galena? The state conference?
Galesburg, yeah.
Galesburg, what did I say? Galena? Galesburg, I mean, I got my G-towns mixed up.
I'm from in between Galesburg and Galena, so.
Okay, yeah, it happens. I do that all the time. But in Galesburg, you did attend the state conference there? Okay. Did you attend the loft department? I mean, so you got to see kind of how they did it. I would definitely have conversation with Jay up at Galesburg, and because they did a very good build out up there, and we're very focused on how they did it. So that's somebody local that you can look at, and very similar to the Carbondale district, somewhat. You know, especially when you're talking about the the demographic. I think you would find that the Carbondale take out the student function would be very similar to the Galesburg demographic. For ideas on incentivizing, one can be grants that can be offered by the city. I don't see that happening in your particular area right now.
Well, the Main Street, in Carbondale specifically, we offer grants. The city provides low-interest loans,
okay.
As well as many grants in districts, but Main Street is the grant money.
Okay. One thing that you can do that's been very successful is looking for a community-minded developer. Okay? And typically what will happen is a community developer will take a section or one of those buildings, convert it into second-story living, and make it a very equitable place, and then it becomes contagious. Once they see how quick that fills, then you've got your example in place. You've got to see what's going on there, and then somebody else will jump on it. The key to success in building out second-story build-out, do not tackle your entire Main Street district together. Look at your area. Look at those second-story vacancies. Which ones would be the quickest, most turnkey, ready to go for second-story residential building, and go there first, if the owner is somebody that you can deal with.
So site-specific, and then it's creating a model.
Yep. Site-specific, create the model, and then they will come. Okay? All right. All right, any questions from those joining us online? Okay. All right, now we're going to talk about fostering business collaboration. This is it's one of those things when you're putting together a presentation, what should you put first? Because you want people to remember it in some way. I put it at this section, but I cannot tell you how important it is, and it's something that Main Street communities, you should just soak this up, because it is your true responsibility to foster this collaboration. It's something that you all should be able to do. One thing that you want to make sure is that if your city does not have a master and or comprehensive plan, that you encourage them to develop one. If they have one, is the Main Street thought in a friendly light inside that comprehensive plan? Were you a part of the brainstorming and planning stages when it took place? If you're saying yes, kudos, hugs from here, that's what happened. If it hasn't happened, you've got to work in that direction to whether it can be amended or updated so that the city's resources and the developer's resources are all inside that plan there to assist your Main Street program. One thing that you need to do from a Main Street perspective is you need to present yourself as an entrepreneurially friend organization. You have to, on an annual basis, not just when you have a new business coming to town, not just when somebody darkens your door and say, hey, I'd like to do this, but you should have a very persistent and planned out approach to allowing entrepreneurs know that you are there to help them. Give them access to training. Okay? If your small business development center, your chamber of commerce, your local community college, your local university, or whoever you see as your major training component of in your area, if they're not hosting these events or providing these services in your downtown district, you have got to get them there or do it yourself. Entrepreneurs want to have the training available to them in the environment where they want to put their business. Now, it can be online. I'm not saying it can't be, but hosted by the Main Street organization. It's fine if you want to do a webinar similar to the way we were doing today, but hosted by Main Street. But it needs to be in your downtown district so that people wanting can come and tour your downtown district. As a part of the entrepreneurial training, take them on a tour of your key vacant properties. Very good marketing for yourselves. Peer-to-peer mentoring. Your ER committee should have, as a part of it, key mentors that can offer services to people looking at starting a business in your downtown. Try to set up seed capital. If you've got grant funding, if you've got some sort of funding available, maybe even a few dollars to help with business plan development, the token amount. There's all kinds of things you can do there. Of course, financing incentives, market research. Of course, we just talked about that recently. And appropriate regulation. Be very open about this particular topic when you're dealing with businesses in your community. When you're looking at building a business-friendly environment, you have to talk about hours of operation. This shows, if from a Main Street concerted effort, that the organization is behind there being a level playing field of hours of your downtown businesses. I cannot hardly go to a Main Street community in the nation if this isn't a key problem in every Main Street district. Been fighting it for years. I won't mention the town, but it is a Main Street organization that's not in Illinois. There's a lady that is a Main Street member, has been a committee member for years and years. I think she was board president at one point. Just a committee, she's a committee volunteer now. But she's a downtown business owner. And in this Main Street community, she preaches, harps, gets on her soapbox almost on a daily basis for consistency of hours, because she wants not her consumers to have a balanced shopping experience when they come to the downtown, not just to her store. She wants people to spend a few hours every evening spending money and time in the downtown. She goes so far as every evening She hires an employee to work until 6 o'clock. She's open until 6 o'clock every day. At 5 o'clock, she leaves her store and walks up down the street of this Main Street community in holsters, in gun holsters basically is what we call them, 2 bottles of silly string. And she will silly string your front door if you're not open past 5 o'clock. And you have to come there the next day and you have silly string to clean up because you closed before 6 o'clock. She's hated by everyone, but boy, she's the talk of the town and has been for a long time, and most of these businesses stay up until 6 so they don't get silly stringed. She has silly stringed a few of the business owners who were locking the door at 5 o'clock as they were locking the door. So she's been on record of doing this. Okay? Peer-to-peer influence. Form a downtown business group. Business owners trust other business owners, not you. Sorry. That's the way it is. Create a system where the consumer voices their wishes. On-spot, intercept surveys, generally talking, getting out and having volunteers talk with consumers. How was your shopping experience today? Couldn't find a parking place. I had to walk almost a block. Sorry. Go to Walmart and walk 6. Okay? I mean, really. But you find out what their basis is for that. Women still, to this day, continue to be the major retail consumer. 5 p.m. closing does not work for them because more women work now than have ever worked in the history of women. They can't get the kids picked up, dropped off, food picked up for that night's meal, dry cleaning picked up, all picked up before 5 o'clock. You have to stay up until 6. 5:30 is okay, but you have to stay up until they can get to the downtown destination. Convenient hours coupled with unique buying experience is what sets downtown apart. You will have tons of business owners say, hey, I was open till 6 and nobody came by. It is your job as a Main Street district to sell, market everywhere that you're open till 6 or 5:30, whatever you set the time at. It is your job to come up with promotions, which we'll talk about in the second section, that promotes those extended hours and brings traffic to the downtown. It is not your job to sell to those consumers, as the businesses will come back and say, well, I didn't make any sales that day. Hey, we brought them to the downtown. It's not our fault. Okay? Facade and awning program. If you don't have one, get one. Consistency of awnings and facades, and I should probably even throw in a signage there also, signage, facade, awning program. Incentivize. Make it equitable for a building owner and business entrepreneur to take advantage of these incentives. I cannot believe that there are Main Street programs out there that do not have these programs. I don't know why it slipped through the gaps all these years, but it is a relationship thing sometimes with the city. It's a relationship thing with building owners because a lot of times when building owners think when you put together a program that there's more hurdles to go through. These typically are never that. There's guidelines. As long as you can assist with an interpretation of the guidelines, it's not rocket science. Economic development resources that are out there. This list could go on and on and on. U.S. Small Business Administration, their website is phenomenal for helping out small businesses. If you've not checked it out, go there. These are no order of the direction you should go. It's just they're just thrown up here haphazard. Planning commissions, those are typically regional, but almost every region in the state of Illinois is serviced by a planning commission, and they have incentive programs a lot of times, as well as they have grant assistance through some of their programs, so that it's something that could be available out there. Your local revolving loan fund program. This is one of the most underused programs in Main Street District. Everybody says, well, it only gives $15,000 for every job created or retained. Only. Typically, it's not hard money to get unless you have a real snooty city council. Typically, they like to give that money away. I think a little bit too easy, but that's their money. They can do with it as they please. Even though we're dealing with low interest rates at this point in our history, they typically are known for their low interest rates. But it is fixed rate, typically 3% to 5%, and it will finance a lot for your downtown development. Make sure that you're on first-name basis with the revolving loan fund manager in your city. Find out how much is in that pool, and tell them you'll be back in 6 weeks and have all of that depleted for them. Okay? Get as much of that for the downtown as you possibly can. It should be your goal to have that in your coffers. Chambers of Commerce can be another area of resource. Hope you have a good relationship with yours. And of course, we've gone over and over small business development centers. Okay, we're going to switch gears here and talk about the Economic Restructuring Committee. Are there any questions? We'll be wrapping this section up here in the next 10 minutes and do thorough questions at that time. Do we have any questions from the floor or from the audience online? Yes?
I have a quick question. We've been talking, I work for the city, like Meg and I work together, and we have a chamber, and we've been trying to work on some things jointly, but here's the concern I've had is that it's kind of hard for the chamber to like maybe get behind Main Street more than the rest of the community. So I think all of us are thinking about it a lot, like how we can be sensitive to that, where we really get the chamber involved in Main Street, but not alienate the other businesses in the community. I don't know if you have any experience in other towns how they.
Never heard this before.
Yeah.
Did you complete your question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The question is relationship building between the Main Street and the Chamber of Commerce. One of the longest unfriendly partners that's been out there. For the most part, Chambers and Main Street, don't know where the blame falls, probably not blame on either one, but they've materialized themselves into trying to go down the same path. They're looking at doing some of the same things. And ways that that you, and this will come up in the board training, whenever you guys do the board training, make sure that you sit in on that particular session. But one thing you as a board, one thing the Main Street organization has to do is, first off, you need to establish your mission, your vision, your model as a Main Street to be separate from what the Chamber of Commerce does. Get your question just a second. Okay. All right, go ahead.
We share an office with the Chamber. We have a great relationship with them. Honestly, we have a very separate business mission statement. We're a very established Main Street community. I think Missy can speak to this. We, have a great relationship with them, and we are very separate. So I think it's not blame on either side. It's not that we have trouble working together. We work together currently on several different things. It's just an economic that we have a hard time working together because the Chamber doesn't want to offend people outside of the downtown district, and we don't want to offend people in our district by expanding borders.
Yeah.
I know you get it, but just
but all three of us are trying to.
well, we're friends.
And goal of like bringing people
We
here.
like each other.
Okay. The addition to the question here was that Megan from Carbondale indicated that they have a good relationship with their chamber. However, there tends to be a little bit of friction, or at least some identification of issues when it comes to expanding borders of the districts and/or how to service the business community at large, and not just the Main Street businesses. So from that point of view, it's very important that the Main Street focus only on the businesses in the downtown. Okay. So often, Main Street have kind of, because especially in our very small rural communities, that is the only game in town. Now, if you're the only game in town, okay, I'm flexible. I can see you need to open this up a little bit more. However, what Chambers handle their membership however they see appropriately for the community at large. Don't work with them if they don't want to alienate those outside businesses. Okay, just stay away from doing any type of partnerships with them when you're only focusing on the downtown. Okay? Do not try to get them to jeopardize their membership issues. They are membership-based. I want to reinforce this, that you're volunteer-based, not membership-based. If you're a 501c3, you better not be membership-based. You better be volunteer-based, okay, to meet tax law. All right? Okay, so you need to be very focused on it. So when you come out and say we have very different mission, we have very different vision, do you mean that, and does your board and your committees agree with you on that? If not, you've got to change the mindset on that. Okay? But make sure that you do not overlap hardly anywhere, if anywhere, in what your roles and responsibilities are to your Main Street District compared to what a chamber is. It always tends to happen what I call during the party planning days. Who's responsible for this event? We want this to be us and only us and this type of thing. It happens there time and time again, and as Megan said, then when you go to get funds and fundraising and revenue sources, then there's a kind of can be a hostile environment there because of who's going to get what. Main Street needs to raise funds specifically for specific projects, not for the organization as a whole. We are here to, for this particular event, for raising this amount of money and be done with it. Chambers raise money typically for some of their events, but for the membership at whole. Okay, does this answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any questions from online? We'll hurry and wrap up here. Okay. All right, no questions from online. We'll move on. Okay, the Economic Restructuring Committee. Role of the committee: visit business people, gather market information, coordinate surveys, meet with developers, and work with realtors, developers, and property owners. That's the key roles of an ER committee. And this is fun stuff, guys. You're going to be at the head of the table for the future development of your downtown district and not just a party planner if you engage in ER. This is cool stuff. Make it fun. 5 things ER committee does. They help expand existing businesses. They look for new businesses. They protect the historic commercial property and find uses for it. Stimulate investment in that property. And they have a comprehensive, they are the go-to people for all the development issues that take place in that downtown. To strengthen existing businesses, develop an inventory, look at those opportunities for expansion, educate business owners on changing markets, and develop assistance and incentives to help existing business expand or improve their store. These are the key elements of strengthening existing business. When recruiting new business, make sure that you have that market research available and have that handy. Publish it online. Don't make somebody come in and get all this information. Do it online. If there's some bulkier, if there's some other things that might be proprietary for a reason, yeah, I'll have that in your office that people can come in and take a look at. But publish as much as possible of your market research online, so entrepreneurs that typically never sleep anyways at 2 o'clock in the morning can browse through some of that cool stuff that you guys researched. Have that building inventory and look for tenant turnovers, and be a catalyst for all the financial incentives to foster new business. You don't need tons of incentives for new business. For downtown development, which we typically don't look at a lot of chain-type store development in the downtown. It happens in some areas, but it's typically not where we look for business growth, and rightfully so. You don't want to go there. But when you're looking for new business entrepreneurs and worried as whether or not you're going to retain them in your community, If you have available space, if you have good market research, and your downtown business community is happy to be where they're at, you will get that business entrepreneur there. The financial incentives just sweeten the pot, but they are not the reason that these developments will take place in downtown. That financial incentives, when it makes or breaks projects, is large firms seeking to locate with hundreds of employees typically, and that's not your downtown district. So don't get hung up on financial incentives. If you don't have them in place right now, build them along, but it won't impede your growth at that point. Find new uses for historic commercial property. Research, 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 network, network, network. What are other communities doing that is cool, innovative, and unique that could apply to your downtown Main Street business? How are they being unique in handling housing issues? Are they look at small-scale employers, how they're operating in the downtown? Well, they're living in the downtown as well as working there. I can tell you that right now. What offices are unique? What are service businesses looking for? And of course, new and innovative entertainment. Just putting in a bar. I hate to say this because nobody likes to drink a beer more than I do, but I have to say that putting in a bar in the next 5 years is going to dramatically change how that happens. The youth go out for cocktails differently than they have ever done in the past, if they go at all, okay? Because they have access to entertainment greater in their living rooms than most bars can ever bring to them. So nightlife entertainment is going to change over the next 5 years and 10 years especially. But in 5 years, that type of nighttime entertainment is going to change, and you need to be thinking about how you're going to bring those incentives in, or bring those type of entrepreneurs in. For stimulate investment in property. Start incremental, start small, and it'll grow. Identify properties that can easily be invested in. In other words, you have a good relationship with the building owner. The building is in good, substantial condition. It has a historic value, and then move forward with that development. Understand the downtown development issues. Building inventory, again, I cannot harp on this, how much important this is in your realization for growth. Match the real estate to the market. Where's your problematic properties? You all know where they are, but are you dealing with them? Have you got a separate committee, a subcommittee set up strictly just to deal with those problematic properties? If not, do so. And a lot of times the problematic properties are problematic owners. Sometimes they're absent and sometimes they're local, but a lot of times they're absent owners. In other words, they live outside of the district or even outside the community, maybe outside the state. You have got to engage those. They will not correct themselves except through an obituary. And sometimes that doesn't even do it because it goes into the hands of an estate that knows even less what to do with it or cares. So you have to engage that property yourselves. And of course, that municipal partnership, very key. All right, now work plans. I am just going to touch on them in this particular session because it's just an overview to ER. But make sure that in the next few months that you look at the schedule that is from the train schedule from Illinois Main Street. There are tons of locations for committee training. Work plans are going to be hit hard and heavy in those trainings. So I'm just going to touch on it here as to what should be included in some ER work plans, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time with it this evening. This is a sample work plan here, taken strictly out of the ER committee handbook from the National Trust. Reasons to do a work plan. Motivate your volunteers to achieve a goal. Provides the benchmarks for success. Tracks donations and volunteers for projects. Your success rate will go up if you have one, I guarantee it, or I will donate money to your project. Reduces confusion and conflict. Of course, it creates a record of accomplishment. I know you may not believe this, but there's director turnover in the Main Street world. There are volunteer turnover in the Main Street world, and unfortunately, there's not enough board turnover. We need more board turnover. That's a joke for those of you online. The turnover rates in Main Street happen, and it's encouraged, but you need some sort of consistency as to what took place, and without these work plans to go through for a history of what happened, it can be very difficult because the wheel has to be reinvented every time there's new personnel handling the project. To draft the work plan, you want to basically set goals and tasks and objectives and identify who they are, what the project is, what all the components are to getting that project completed. Identify people, and I want to reiterate this, on any work plan, on any committee, whether it be ER or any of the other committees, the director's name should not be in one of those columns anywhere. It is not the director's role to implement the work plans. It is the volunteers' roles on these committees to implement these work plans. So they should be chock full of a variety of volunteers' names as to who's the responsible party. Of course, the approval of the work plans, the committees in an ideal world develop the work plan. They present it to the board, and the board approves it. Now, don't be a jerk if you're on the board and disapprove a committee's work plan. They put a lot of hard work into it. They believe they can do it, and they're going to do it themselves, so why not let them run with it? I've rarely ever seen a board not approve a work plan, but I guess it could happen. I've never seen it either, but I guess it could happen. But make sure that the committee constructs the work plan, the committee carries it out, the board just brings all the work plans together and makes sure it's meeting the mission of the organization. And of course, then they authorize funds and the budget, because part of the committee work plan has a budget, so this is how much money we need. And of course, take action with your work plan. Involve as much of the public as you possibly can in developing that work plan. It will result in more funds delivered to your project, I guarantee you. The more the community can see a transparency in your work plan development, the more they will give funds, and they might even volunteer their own time. Imagine if I could have a cyber raise of hands here about who's having struggled in getting volunteers, I would say everybody will raise their hand. The volunteer ethic is at an all-time low, but we'll talk about that more in the committee trainings as to how to deal with that, and of course the board trainings also. Work plans help develop leaders. There's always somebody that's going to surface to the top, say I want to do it my way or no way, and they'll be your leader. Go bring in other organizations. That's a good place to bring your chambers in, especially on the ER function, as a section or a component of one of your goals, objectives of your work plan. Build better partnerships, and you get to evaluate the program. Each of you, for himself, by himself, and on his own responsibility, must speak now. Mark Twain. What questions do you have?